On Able Wellness. Today we are going to cover and talk about some things related to mind-body, the benefits of mind-body movement, and that can relate to martial artists, because I'm a martial artist, true and true. I mean, from beginning to when I started when I was a very young kid to I am now, I'm a martial artist. Regardless of the martial art you do, some of the benefits of mind-body movement. Again, we as martial artists, we have mind-body when we involve the martial art that we do. At least we should. There's kind of some things sometimes that we, as martial artists, can overlook. And that goes into Tai Chi practice. That can even go into Pilates movement. There's other things such as yoga. And there's other movement practices. There's all across the spectrum there. I basically tie all that together. It is mind-body movement. And there's benefits of that. Okay, so some of the key factors in mind-body movement is really important is that we have that flexibility. Now, flexibility is something that is kind of misinterpreted or misunderstood when they talk about flexibility. Flexibility can be not just about stretching, where you get a strap and you re-yank your leg back as hard as you can and you stretch it and you're treating it like you're in a gym somewhere lifting weights. You do it very fast, very quick, a short period of time, and then you take off. The research that backs that up shows that if you stretch a muscle that's really cold very hard, that's going to set you up for an injury. The research backs that. So these traditional stretches where I see a lot of times I'll go see a 5K race or somebody running or an athlete getting ready to perform, and if they don't warm up first, then they're setting themselves up for an injury. Also, if they stretch too hard, they're setting themselves up for an injury. And a lot of people say, well, I don't understand is that, I did that hamstring stretch. Why did my hamstring blow out? Why did it rip? Why did it tear? Why did that happen? Because you can't take a muscle that is already tight and then try to stretch it. So then you're pulling something very, very hard and trying to elongate it. And then you're asking for it to stay there. And then you're trying to put a lot of force and movement into it. Well, you don't have an adequate amount of blood supply into that tissue. The tissue is like putty, and it's like taffy or bubble gum. It's like, would you blow a bubble with a stick of gum you just put in your mouth? No, you would chew on it for a while. You get it moistened, softened up, and then you would blow bubbles with it. So your tissues is exactly the same way. So with flexibility, we can't just run into, I'm going to just stretch them, hamstrings. I'm going to just stretch my hamstring really, really hard. And that's going to prevent me from tearing a muscle or from hurting myself, straining something. So you'd be better off not stretching. Hear me again. You'd be better off not stretching and warming up, like even just jumping jacks, marching in place, doing some light sprints back and forth, lifting your knees up and down, getting your heart rate up, getting the blood circulated through your body first. Now, I'm not saying go run your race, a 5K race, and then stretch. I'm not saying that. I'm saying warm up. So heat the body up really, really good, and then do some gentle stretching before you would do your activity. So I see a lot of times in martial arts, they'll warm the class up. They'll try to do these splits and stuff before and all these stretches and stuff before they start class. And I find over the years seeing that is like people are hurting themselves doing that just from the warm-up. And it's technically not really warming up. So you'd be better off trying to get your heart rate up, get the blood flowing a little bit in a light manner. That's why a lot of times I always say kata. If you're a karate practitioner and you do kata, you just do it really slow and movement, and then you add some stretching into it afterwards. But you get your heart rate up, get the blood flowing in your body. So I think flexibility is very important, and we have to make sure, are we treating flexibility in a balanced manner? Is the flexibility the flexibility that we are putting into our activities and the things that we're going to do, regardless whether it's martial arts or whatever, is that hindering us? Are we getting injuries from that? Okay, that's a question I ask you. So I say be careful on the stretching. Flexibility is very important. It's one of the mind-body awarenesses, the things that we have to be aware of, and the benefits behind it. Flexibility is very important. All right, so the next thing that I want to talk about is strength, okay? So strength is also misunderstood as well. We think that working one body part is going to strengthen our body to where we're strong there now. But really what I look at it this way is, what is true strength to you? Is true strength being able to bench press 350 pounds 5 times or 10 times or whatever? Lifting that amount of weight. And I'm not taking anything away from strength whatsoever. But my question as I ask to everyone is, your strength training, what you're doing, is it benefiting your activity? Or is it hindering it? So for example, which one would you think would be stronger? Would you argue that the power lifter is stronger? Or the gymnast? Totally different activities. The power lifter, great strength. Not taking anything away. The Olympic lifting and all that stuff, I'm not taking anything away from that whatsoever. But and again, the activity that they are doing is benefiting their workout or how they train, and what they're training is benefiting their activity, what they do. So they go hand in hand. So if they're doing their Olympic lifting, then we wouldn't see them going out and running a marathon. What they do doesn't translate into marathon work. What they do relates into lifting, building strength. Okay? The gymnast, on the other hand, is what they do strength-wise and movement-wise goes with what they do. We wouldn't ask them to do what they do and then come in and do Olympic lifting and try to equal what Olympic lifter does, or a power lifter or whatever. So, my question is your strength training benefiting your activity? So that's something to really look at. There is the Olympic lifter or power lifter, there's nothing wrong with that. Or even just working out with weights. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And there's a lot of benefits from that. But is what you're doing hindering your activity? So we have to look at, really there's no, everyone can have their own opinion on what is stronger, the Olympic lifter or the power lifter or the gymnast. And you can even use other concepts of that, other types of people. Is the dancer that does ballet or some type of, movement dancing, are they a strong athlete, or is it the football player? Some people argue, oh, no, it's the football player that's stronger. They can lift this weight and do that. But again, it's not that we can't take an apple and put it over with an orange and say, well, that's an orange, but it's an apple. Move it back over to the apple. So we separate the two things, and again, a dancer does what they need to do for their activity. So as for a martial artist or any type of movement practitioner, are you doing the activity, and are you doing things that benefit your activity? Your training, the things that you're doing like strength training, flexibility, and things like that. Are you doing things that actually benefit and help you with your activity, or is it hindering you? Something to think about, okay? I am for balancing you out and keeping you working on your activity. So, like I said, there's nothing wrong with doing Olympic lifting. There's nothing wrong with lifting weights. But it needs to be to the activity, okay? We wouldn't ask a cat to be a dog. We wouldn't be asking a dog to be a cat. They're two different animals, right? So, again, it's the same thing. We wouldn't ask somebody to do one activity and then work out a different way. So, strength training needs to be based off of what is going to work and help you with your activity. If it's not, and you're getting injuries from it and you're hurting yourself, then you might need to reevaluate that. Okay? So, also the strength that I'm talking about is, as martial artists, we want to strengthen everything from our spine. And I hear this a lot. Some of my instructors always said, when you punch from the spine, punch from the hip. And everything that extends off your arm or your extremity is from the spine. So it's not the hand that does, the hand does the damage, but what is leading along the way? It's like the pool stick when you hit playing pool. Is it the arm that gives you the strength? Is it the stick? Where is all that coming from? So it's like a chain reaction, or a leading from the spine, leading out through the muscles, through the arm, down into the arm, into the stick, and then boom, it hits the ball, and the ball goes out. So we really want to find where the root of the strength starts from, and then build from out. So when we work out, we work from in to work out, not work out to work in. Okay, so next one I want to talk about is alignment. Alignment is crucial. So, it's like sometimes I'll have students in class and their head will be tilted to the side. And they're trying to do stuff. And so, again, that's going to mess with their balance. So bring your head back up and align it. So our alignment is really important, because if we're not correctly in line, and we also need to move in correct alignment. So the faster you go, the harder it is to keep that. Think of a blender. We put all our ingredients in our blender, we turn it on. If we don't have a lid on it, it just spills all over the place. Okay? So we have to contain that. So for our, contain it and use it for how we need to use it for. So we need to keep that alignment so we can move. So and again, everything is that alignment is really important. So, you can have a shoulder up. It's like, well, so what's going on the shoulder? So everything has to do with alignment. So we start from that key point of alignment, and that could go from your feet all the way through the legs, spine, hip, spine, all the way up to your head. So we really need to study alignment. You do it when you lift weights. You do it in karate when we hold, in martial arts, certain martial arts, when we hold a position. We need to find that correct alignment. Where is that moving from? So when we go through movement practice and stuff, we need to make sure alignment is the key for our movement. If we don't have good alignment, then off balance. Gravity is going to either work for you or against you. And both. Okay, so gravity works against you. But we also know that gravity is a great teacher. But if I have my head stuck forward here, gravity is working it's going to work regardless, and it's going to work against me, but also for me. So if I want my head forward, that's going to work for me, but it's also going to cause my neck to be having some issues. So I need to make sure I use gravity as my teacher to teach me to have good alignment. Okay? And of course, there's other factors that go with that. But alignment is really, really important. So, also alignment as well. Do I have one side of my body sitting forward? So we have different patterns of positions where we're sitting, standing, moving. And in martial arts, we have to be always aware of that. So the faster you go, the less you have awareness of that. We need to slow it down again and really work on our alignment. Okay, so and I'll show you in the next video or so when we start getting into some of the movement practices and stuff and techniques where I'll talk to you about alignment and all these other things. So the next thing I want to cover is balance. Okay, so balance is a different concept as well. With all these I'm talking about, balance is, everybody has different ideas on balance, okay? A lot of people say, well, if your feet are grounded to the floor, you have true balance. People say, well, if you have a good, strong core right here, you have great balance. Some people say, well, if you have good alignment, you stand up tall, you'll have good balance. And, or if they say you have really strong legs, you have good balance. Well, guess what? All those are right. But so with that, if you have all those correct in your body, then you probably have good balance. But most of us, we can always improve that, okay? So what I'll say is that the feet that touch the floor, the more surface of the foot that touches the floor, the better balance you're going to have, okay? They have better contact. So you have your proprioception, all those sensory, all those nerves in the bottoms of your feet that are touching the floor in contact of where you move in space, okay? So this is really important that we look at it that way. If I'm standing up on my tiptoes, I have less balance than somebody that has their foot flat on the floor. Okay, they have more surface touching the floor. If I stand on one leg, I'm not as balanced as someone is standing with 2 feet on the floor. Or if you want to use it your own body, your own self. So we have one leg up, versus both feet down. Both feet down should have better balance, have connection, okay? So our balance is really important. I always say this though, it still goes back to the spine. The head, the spine to pelvis, and the feet, okay? So you go feet, pelvis, spine, and the head. That all needs to stay in line when you're seated, standing, moving around. Okay? Now there's going to be an exception for that when you move forward and side and different patterns. But can we go through motion and maintain that stability? Maintain that balance. Balance can be judged in so many different ways. What I'll say is, what you do, are you training balance, and is it equal on both sides? You stand on one leg, stand on your left leg, and is it stronger on that side, better on that side versus the other side? So treat it as this. When we work balance, we want to work both sides. We want to balance everything out. No pun, but maybe a little. And we need to equally have balance. So if I shift my weight to my left and out of my right, I need to make sure that I also do the same thing to the other side. So we need to go bilateral, or we need to do both sides when we work balance. That could be just like a stance. If we're in one leg forward too much on one side, that's a stronger side, but also we can get into some issues with that side as well. So we need to make sure when we're in our movement, with martial arts, any type of movement practice, that we're balancing out equally on both sides. Okay? And of course, there's other sensory things that go into that. Your eyes have a big deal with your balance. Your inner ear has a huge thing with your balance. And then your muscle development and tissue development in your body has a huge factor in that as well. So you want, with your practice, and then your side practices, so such as if you're doing Pilates or yoga or Tai Chi, to help support your practice of what you're doing, such as if you did judo and you were doing say Tai Chi to counteract that or help balance that and add to it. So you basically cross train. So thinking about your cross training. So what are you doing is helping you balance through cross training, helping you with your martial art practice or any practice you might be doing. Some practices will help develop everything, but we can always get help and other ideas from other practices. So we all can learn from each other. So one practice is not better than the other. So next thing is body awareness and control. So it's kind of some of what I was talking about with balance. So body awareness. So we're taught to in martial arts, and I do Shotokan karate. But we're also, in any martial art, we're typically, we're taught to have our body awareness. So we need to be aware of everything around us, our peripheral vision, anything that's in front. When our target or our opponent moves from side to side or forward or back, we need eye contact. We need to be able to follow with our eyes. We need to be able to respond with our body. And then, of course, the feeling, it's kind of like that force field. People use sometimes is like that force field. When anybody gets within my force field range, I can sense those things. Regardless of what you think about that, there is a lot of truth and research behind that, with proprioception type stuff and body awareness. So, so not only that, it's just not that you can sense somebody from 10 feet away or around the corner that's going to walk around, you get this weird feeling. I think that's probably built into us regardless of whether we have that intuition typically built into us. It's just a matter of whether we, work on that or not. And I think martial arts and I think other practices can help bring that awareness out of us that we already have built into us. So I don't think there's anything magical or mystical that you're going to read a book or you're going to sit on a mountain and tie into that. But I think if you just go through your typical practice and you slow down and you're aware of that, you're going to have better body awareness and control. We see it in martial arts with our katas and our forms. There's things where you have slow movements and things like that. And so it's really going to help develop the body awareness and control. And that's one very small, minute point of that. That's not the main reason why you do forms and katas at all. But I think those benefits of movement practices, katas and whatnot and any type of martial art can help that. if you just, if you're willing to tap into that. So again, body awareness and control. I think of it like this: like a baseball player, if I threw a baseball really, really fast, 90 miles an hour, that's great, and I can pinpoint and control where I put that ball at into that catcher's mitt. Now, that's great on the exterior or that forward motion, and that's going out of my body. Okay, that's why the eye's in the front of our head, because we're forward. We're a hunter-gatherer type thing. We move. Everything's on the front of us. Otherwise, we'd have eyes in the back of our head or side of our head or whatever. So that's why they're designed in the front, okay, so we can see. But as we throw the ball out, what is controlling the recoil of that? If you think about it, if you put like a 25-pound weight in your hand, or heavier, just pick up a weight you can barely pick up, and then you haul back and you throw that weight as hard as you can. Okay, so you throw it, but can you stop it? And if you do stop it, is there a chain reaction back here that makes muscles tear and hurt, rip out, dislocation, and are you injuring yourself from doing that? Probably so. So a baseball player that can throw a ball 90 miles an hour has to be able to have braking muscles. Just think of the brakes that has to happen to stop. So a martial artist is the same way. So, if they're throwing punches and arms like that, they have, just with your movement going out, you have to be able to recoil the arms back. Okay, so it's an example of that. You can go out with your arms, but can you have that other side of it, that recoil and that control, so you don't overextend your movement. It's just like in movement like Pilates and stuff. If we reach our arm out, what are we reaching to? Okay, so a lot of times it's what we see, what we reach to, but we also tell that we need to bring the arm back into the shoulder, into the spine. So we have to have the amount of energy and also muscle control to come back to here to hold while we reach out with our arm. If everything goes, then that's where injury can happen. Okay, so I always say when you punch, but imagine you're punching with your half of your arm from your elbow down to your hand, and the other half is staying back in the body. There's other concepts you can use, but if everything goes out, then you can injure something back in your shoulder, your neck, somewhere down the arm, or even your elbow or so on. So again, you have the amount of force that goes out, you need to have a connection back in your body, otherwise too much. So the next thing we're going to talk about is breath control. Breath control, we think about swimmers, divers that dive under the water, scuba divers, singers, people that sing, people that you can just go down the list. Somebody that's a marathon runner, to cyclists, to martial artists, you think about anything whatsoever. And then if you step outside of those activities and you think about even people that ride motorcycles professionally, how about NASCAR drivers, high performance motorcycles to Grand Prix. So anything, you think those guys have to breathe? You think they hold the breath the whole time? You think the better control they have of their breath, you think the better they can do? Or if they hold the breath the whole time, are they going to perform well? Well, for one, they probably won't be with us, and they probably won't be very successful as well. So breathing is important. We're brought in. The first thing that happens when we're brought into the world, when we're born, is we take a gulp of air, right? Take an air. And of course, the doctor might slap you on the behind and keep you from crying or start you to cry to wake you up. But the first thing we do when we come out into this world is we breathe. And guess what? That's the last thing you do when you leave this world. Okay, so would you think breath is really important? Of course it is. So, how do we breathe? When should we breathe? Is there different types of breathing? Yes, there is tons and tons of ways. Yoga has a certain way of breathing. They have different types of cycles, rhythms that they use, longer cycles. Pilates is the same way. And I do Pilates as well, is that we have different cycles of breath. Martial arts have ways of breathing too. So breathing is across the whole spectrum. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you do or you don't do. If you're not breathing, you're probably not here with us. You're not viewing what's going on. Everything that's going on is viewing you. Okay? You're not with us. You're laying there being viewed. Okay? So my suggestion is really focus on the breath. Now, we can't focus on the breath if we're constantly moving 100 miles an hour all the time and constantly in this high alert state. So breath control can be at different factors, different levels, and different ways of training it. So I always recommend is that if the activity you're doing is making you hold your breath for long periods of time without breathing, then you probably want to change that a little bit. Start breathing again. So, it's like sometimes I say, people ask me, they go, well, when should I take a breath? When should I inhale? When should I exhale? I say, well, if it's causing you to question that, you should have already done it. So if you're thinking, should I take an inhale? You probably should have done it already. If I should take an exhale, you probably should have done it already. So that's the basic form of that. Now, like I said, there's different concepts. Typically, what I'll tell people to do is make sure you breathe through the nose, and the air is going to come down and funnel out, kind of like a tree. If I was a tree, my head was the spine here, and the tree that grows up here, the flower. My roots of my lungs are going to be down here. So when I take a breath in, I want the air to go in and as deep and as wide in the circumference around, or the circle around my lungs, all the way around to the back, the sides, all the way around to the front. All the way around. And then as low as I can get it towards my pelvis. Okay? So now that's slow breathing. And of course you exhale out of the mouth. So there's also cycles where you'll exhale out like that. And there's all different patterns. So with every movement practice you do, Pilates, yoga, martial arts, whatever, make sure that you are training that, okay, and working on that. And even if you just take 5 minutes or so a day, 10 minutes a day, and do an activity that really you focus on that breath, so you can train that habitual habit of not breathing to something of a habitual habit that you are breathing correctly. Okay, so really work on that. It could be as simple as lying down and just taking about 10 cycles of breath to get your breathing in tune, and then you do your practice, and hopefully that will translate over. And there's other tactics and methods you can use. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about is focus. Focus is really important. Okay, we talk about focus in martial arts all the time. We focus on the activity. We need to keep that mind state of our opponents, or opponents. We need to keep that awareness, that focus there. And not only that, we even talk about the muscle control through focus. We have to be able to contract. A lot of times they call that kime, or kime is focus. Is that focus developed too? So we can, again, the focus is, being able to, like for example, like in kime, is to be able to contract the muscles at any point of movement. Doesn't mean it's at the, if I extend my arm all the way out with a punch, it doesn't mean that the kime or focus is there. That focus could be anywhere from the start of the movement to the end range. That could be with any technique, any movement. So your focus and awareness, or focus is, of course, awareness. Your focus could also be in a pose that you might be in. Where's your intent when you hold there and you look up? If you're, or if you're doing a downward dog, or if you're doing, your teaser, if you're, some of these names I'm throwing out, don't get caught up in the names, but, or if you're in a kibidachi, in a horse stance, and you're doing a punch, and you're holding that technique, where's your focus at? Your mind starts drifting, and you start looking off out the window or somewhere else. Is your focus intent there? So being able to bring awareness to your focus, because that's going to help be aware of your body. And you can't focus if you're moving really, really fast. For focus, you have to slow down. And then, as you do speed up, then hopefully that focus will translate with it. Okay? Now, of course, I'm not saying you can't go fast without focus. Or focus won't go with going fast, because, your alertness goes up. But you're focused on a single point. Now, for example, if you're being attacked by 3 or 4 people at one time, your focus is going to be there. Your awareness and focus will be there. But it's not going to be on, it shouldn't be just on one person. Your focus should be on all the scenarios. So it's going to be just more spread out versus zeroed in on one thing. So tunnel vision. So your focus will be put in a different way. So my thing is your training, whether it's in Pilates, yoga, any type of martial art, there's moments of focus where you will focus on one thing. And there'll be moments of focus where you'll be able to expand it out into a bigger focus point. So we also have to be focusing on our body, how the alignment and everything is, and our breathing and all the awareness that goes along with that. So through your movement, is your focus that you're doing, is it helping your practice? Is it helping you? And if not, tie into some other cross-training type methods that will help you develop that. That's why a lot of times people will work on meditation, because it helps their focus. Because maybe they need help in developing that. So really develop your focus. You can take a moment for meditation, and that can help bring that focus awareness to you. Okay, so again, those are some of the topics I'm talking about today, about the benefits of the mind-body movement practice. And catch me next time on some other videos I'll be putting out. I really appreciate your time. And I'll be translating a lot of this into some of the next videos. So take care. See you next time.